critical, and the number of people who come to me with a pitch that is nothing, and the film that comes back is nothing like anything the BBC would ever show. And it's really not hard. I mean, these are now available, most documentaries are available on DVD. You can see the difference between the more extreme Finnish documentaries are things that certainly wouldn't work on the BBC, and likewise the other way around. Watch it, and you'll suddenly think, wait a second, can I really make this film for these two broadcasters? But just I'll shut up in a second, but to follow on from what Monique said, I think we broadcasters are aware of it, and we're actually getting much better at talking to each other and agreeing it beforehand, because we've all now got into enough of these scrapes that we think maybe we'll chat on the phone before we take commission something.
I once had a co-production where I showed one version to one partner, and they started talking about putting it into the Academy Awards. And I showed it to another partner, and he took me outside and told me it was the worst film he'd ever seen in his life. And I'm not sure it was my communication skills that were not working. This can happen. This is what can happen with co-productions. But there was one thing that was talked about, which is about trust. It's not just trust. It's solving all problems that are not solved at the beginning get worse. And they come back and bite you. And the bite is worse and worse and worse. So that's like almost number one. Solve as many of those problems before first day of principal photography. Saves all sorts of things. And the other thing to know is that when you're working with partners, you are choosing them in courtship mode. And know there are at least two other versions of them. There's the version of them when things get in trouble. You get partners who hide, you get partners who blame. And then there's the version of them that happens when you have money problems. And the best thing you can do about that is, before the courtship is finalized, do some due diligence with partners they've had before.
So research your partners, just like getting married, I suppose. People always say co-production is like a marriage. Elizabeth, you had a point.
Yes, it does not.
Can we get the mics working, please?
Yes. I will say something really dreadful. Too many partners is maybe not too good, because we live in a global world now with, nevertheless, a cultural diversity. So if you have too many partners, of course you need the money, we all understand that, but too many partners, it will be really difficult in the editing room. And also, please, I'm just repeating what my colleagues are saying, please study the editorial guidelines for the projects you suggest to propose to us. It's all on the net today, it's very easy to find out.
Ari, you had a point, Ari.
So it's one point. I faced it recently quite a lot, and maybe something to do that there's so many new players coming into the round, but from my point of view, from my job is to look at the item and the film has the relevance for the Finnish audience. And when the program is pitched, quite often they start that this would be ideal for the Finnish audience. The Finnish audience will love it. And I will say that no, I know this, because this my job is really to be expert in that field and say, and when I say it, they are really angry that you don't know anything. So just try to get the basic things about the country you're selling. I think that's rude, very rude to put it that way, but that happens.
So there's plenty of creative pitfalls to avoid, and I'd be interested to hear. Sorry, Bill.
Can I just pick up on that one very important point? Your producers, your job is to protect the editorial integrity of a project. When you go into a project, you can't have more than one director. You've got to have one director and one person who everybody trusts to bring the project off. Otherwise, you're doomed.
So the creative pitfalls are manifold. Choosing the right subject matter, choosing the talent, and choosing your partners seem to be the most important things here. I'd be interested also to hear about the different business models that co-production engenders, because you could do deals with distributors, and co-production deals with distributors, and they give you advances. You could do deals with producers, which trigger public subsidies. You could do other deals which mean that you give away large chunks of the territorial rights of the world, and then you find out you haven't got enough rights to then attract a distributor. So, Yves, maybe you could tell us a little bit about this, the different business models.
Yeah, we should. You're right. We should talk about co-financing, because co-financing covers all that. So co-production is rare, and usually you don't have more than one or two real co-production partners, and the pre-sales from the podcasters is part of the co-financing. Then you can go to many other possibilities of co-financing. You have to. The difficulty today is that as we are in a world where the program, the content we produce has to be not only broadcast, but has to go to for any kind of devices and all territories and all formats and blah blah blah. Legally, it's more and more difficult. You have to take care of that. Today, co-financing a film, co-financing a content, because it's not only a film usually, and Monique said that before, you need to be very careful on the rights problem. We're not going to go in that, but it's a problem by itself, and it needs more and more ability and know-how for dealing with that. And it is one of the main problems when you go in co-production or co-financing. Who is going to pay for for cleaning the rights, for example? It's oftenly a problem which is not clarified at the very beginning, and if it's not, it's a nightmare. Who is going to pay for the archives? And because at the very beginning you say, well, maybe we are going to use 8-minute archive in the film, and at the end of the day, it will be 20 minutes. And it's not the same story, and the same amount. So that's, for example, one problem, very difficult, which can be a reason for a bad experience, a bad co-production experience. You know?
I think this morning the panels stated very well that we're in a world that is changing completely. I don't believe television will disappear, that's for sure, but then again, all the other platforms are there. And we're in the middle of a change where we still have traditional programs for financing that are essentially in documentaries television, and we've not adapted yet these programs or the different kind of mechanism to the other platforms or for original content. So some countries are, going faster on this, others are not. For example, in Canada, as of April 1st, if you want to have funding from the Canadian Television Fund, which is a new media fund now, you necessarily have to have 2 applications to your documentary. If not, you don't get the funding. But the different other programs in Canada have not yet been, reorganized to synchronize with that fact. So it's a difficult world right now. It's very exciting in many ways. Creatively, I think it is extraordinary. And I think that in Latin America, because a lot of things are changing, there's new systems, new televisions being created, that maybe you're going to leap over and be more in advance than European countries or North American countries that have the old systems. So it's a tricky but exciting situation.
I was just going to echo the complexities of the rights. There's a really good example, which is I work with HBO all the time. I love sitting in their offices overlooking their Empire State Building and thinking how cool it is. But then when we get home, we discover that our rights for online are completely incompatible, that we simply cannot buy a film from HBO because